Now we're into our last set of notes for Unit 7 in cognition, and now we're going to talk about language and thinking. So we'll talk about language by itself, but then also about how it relates to and is intertwined with thought and thinking. So language, it's our spoken, written, or even gestured word. It is the way we communicate meaning to both ourselves, because yes, we all talk to ourselves, and others, right? Language transmits culture and the understanding of common objects and ideas. I mean, it's imperative to any culture and any group of people. So let's talk about language structure. We'll go to the basics and kind of build off of that. Phonemes. I want you to think of a phone, right? Phonemes, and your phone makes sound. So phonemes is the smallest distinctive sound unit in a spoken language. Some examples with the word bat. It has 3 phonemes. B-A-T, b-at. It has 3 sounds, not 3 syllables. Syllables are not sounds. I mean, yes, they are sounds, but a phoneme is not a syllable. Then the word chat also has 3 phonemes. Okay, so just because it's one letter doesn't mean that CH can have its own phoneme because it makes its own sound. You don't say k-hat, you say chat, right? CH says ch. So that would have 3 phonemes. Morpheme, as in meaning, morpheme, meaning, is the smallest unit that carries meaning, and it may be a word or even a part of a word. So for example, milk is 1 morpheme. It carries its own meaning, but pumpkin, although it has its own meaning, 2 morphemes, because pump and kin are 2 different words and carry 2 different meanings. Unforgettable has quite a few. There's the word un, or the prefix, right? For, get, and table. And that has quite a few morphemes in it. So again, phonemes being basic sounds, morphemes, smallest units of meaning, and then words are the meaningful units. And then there's phrases, and then there's sentences. So kind of like the structuring of language here. Grammar is the system of rules in a language that enables us to communicate with and understand others. And this is very much culturally determined as well. We're going to talk about semantics and syntax. Semantics are the set of rules by which we derive meaning from morphemes, words, and sentences. For example, we have a semantic rule that tells us that adding ed to the word laugh means that it happened in the past. So let me clarify something in your understanding here, and you need to make sure you write this down. Ed, right, that like ending there, is a morpheme. But the rule that says when you add that to the end of a word, it makes it past tense, is a semantics rule. Okay, so ed is the morpheme, and adding it will change the meaning of the word. But then the rule that ed makes it past tense is semantics. Syntax is the rules for combining words into grammatically sensible sentences. This is like the order of words in a sentence. So in English, syntactical rule is that adjectives come before nouns. We say white house, whereas in Spanish and most other languages you say casa blanca, you say house white. Children learn their native languages much before learning to add 2 plus 2. Okay, and I think this is rather obvious to you. But here's kind of some more information about that. We learn on average after the age of 1, 3,500 words a year, amassing 60,000 words by the time we graduate from high school. That's a lot, right? So you should be proud of yourself. So let's talk about the development of language. We have the babbling stage. This begins at about 4 months. The infant spontaneously utters various sounds that make no sense. Babbling is not imitation of adult speech. Until about 9 or 10 months, they cannot differentiate native language of a baby's household, which shows you that they're in the babbling stage. There's no difference between cultures and languages in the babbling stage. Then they enter the one-word stage, and beginning at or around the first birthday, a child starts to speak one word and makes family adults understand him. So the word doggy may mean, look at the dog over there. Or eat means I want to eat. But all they say is eat. That's a one-word stage. And it usually begins with the short words that begin with consonants. So like B, ball, D, dada, or doggy, right? Mama, and P or T. However, children are capable of understanding quite a bit of language they hear at and before this stage. They understand a lot. They just cannot communicate a lot. The 2-word stage is before the 2nd year. A child starts to speak in 2-word sentences. This is called telegraphic speech. Think of like a telegram. It's a very, very shortened, almost like secondhand writing, in which the child speaks like a telegram. So go car means that I would like to go for a ride in the car, but it's only 2 words, hence telegraphic speech. And then there's longer phrases. After telegraphic speech, the children start uttering longer phrases, like mommy get ball, with syntactical sense, and by early elementary school, they are enjoying humor. So they kind of enjoy both the meaning of words and the grammar, like this joke, you'll never starve in the desert because of all the sand which is there. Kind of funny, makes you think of sandwiches. So in explaining language development, we have a couple of perspectives to take. One is that of Skinner, who believed that we learn to talk through operant conditioning and operant conditioning only. We're not born with anything in our brain. We learn through through reinforcement and punishment. Language development can be explained on the basis of learning principles like association, imitation, and reinforcement. Children learn to speak because they're rewarded for making sounds that are close to adult speech, and they are shaped over time until they form the correct words. I mean, think about when a child says their first word ever. The adults are like, oh my gosh, that's so wonderful. They're clapping and they're happy and they're smiling, right? That's a reinforcement for the child. Chomsky disagrees. He opposed Skinner's ideas, suggesting that we have a language acquisition, device in our brain. He says that the rate of acquiring language is so fast that it can't be explained through learning principles, and that it has to be inborn. He supports the idea that languages have a universal grammar, which is the similar underlying structure of all world language, and he believes in the presence of a language acquisition device. This is a neural system of the brain for understanding language that is switched on by exposure to language in our environment, and we are born with that. So statistical learning in critical periods, well before our first birthday, our brains are discerning word breaks by statistically analyzing which syllables in happy baby go together, and that we start noticing the breaks and therefore grouping sounds into words. So such statistical analysis is learned during critical periods of child development, and that critical period says that if we wait until after that time to learn any language, it's going to be almost impossible for us to learn language at all. So language and thinking are intricately intertwined, and we'll talk about why with Benjamin Whorf, who came up with this idea of linguistic determinism, or his linguistic relativity hypothesis. He suggested that language determines the way we think and perceive the world. An example, the Hopi, he noted, did not have past tense for verbs. Therefore, they could not think readily about the past, saying that our language determines the way we think. When a language provides words for objects or events, we can think about these objects more clearly and retain them, like the differences in colors or in words for colors or in words for snow. An example being in Alaska, they have like a bajillion names for snow, whereas here it's known as the White Death, right? Like it's the White Plague. Here it comes, oh my gosh, shut everything down. But in Alaska, they have so many, there's different types of snow, some that's wet snow, some that's dry snow, and they have words for all of those types. And so they're able to more readily think about preparing for it and what they should wear that day and all kinds of complex things that my Midwestern brain just doesn't understand quite yet. So thinking in images, to a large extent, thinking is language-based. Like when we're alone, we talk to ourselves. We do this, don't deny it. You do it even if it's in your brain and not out loud. You should do this. However, we also think in images. So for instance, we don't think in words when we open the hot water tap. Like we don't see that sentence. We just see ourselves opening, like turning it on, right? When we're riding a bicycle, you don't think in words of pedal, 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 steer, steer, steer. Imagining a physical activity actually activates the same brain regions as when actually performing the activity. So most psychologists believe that it is probably our thoughts that influence our language, and that they go hand in hand. And this is also, if you have any kind of performance, like a sport or an instrument, anything like that, visualizing is huge. You've got to see yourself doing things well, and then you're more able to do them well in reality.